Here we got a nice game of Thermo. It's known as the noob map. It's a 4 on 4, basically 4 people on one side, 4 people on another. Fight through a narrow corridor. It's a noob map because usually people who get beat up on other maps come here and stand by their allies and pretend like they're being useful. So you're really protected by your allies in this one. What usually happens is that some people keep playing it and don't move to other maps and get really good. And then in this case, what actually has happened, it's even more noob than just this new map. They actually turned on double resources, uh, which makes the game even easier to play. Basically, there's single strat, and economy becomes really easy to do. And what an interesting thing happened in this particular game is that actually 4 really good players got tricked, or according to the chat, they didn't realize this was an X2, and they got stuck with a couple of these pro noobs that are we got here Mecha, Sting, Hempcamp, and who's this? Unt Albi Mengi. So these 4 players against Character, Berg, King Remy, and Dark Falcon. So now that they have realized it's X2, and I've turned off the chat just to protect the innocence and innocent, so that there are no questions. They have realized this is X2, and they will try to adjust and see how well they do. So noobs who are used to this type of gameplay and pros who are not really used to this type of gameplay. And what you can see what happens in this map, since it's X2, very quickly people get nice bases. They basically upgrade for the first few minutes. And a lot of times, let's see if we can get a nice view from this direction. Let's see what this map looks like. See character is the mid player against Albi on the other side. And there's really not much fighting early on because T1, T2, and T3 units are basically not useful at all in these game settings. It's all about experimentals and really expensive units. See character sending some stuff to just fight over these mexes. They're not that valuable because you got plenty at your own base. So now let me speed this up a little more. First 10 minutes is all eco for the most part. And then you can see here people basically making a lot of NGs, a lot of build power. See some T3 power generators already. Plenty of expensive units very quickly. And on the other side, see what it looks like. Still pretty much building. And you can see here I'll be making these kennels. So this is the EF. This is probably the best unit for build power in this game. See these flying things. So you can build things very quickly. And we see a first experimental at 9 minutes being built by Mecha. He's getting some help from his allies actually. No, this is his own. So it's really important to trade technologies. Usually people get here. We have UEF, Aeon, and Cybern. So they're missing Seraphim on this team. See the other team, they have Seraphim, Aeon, UEF, and UEF. So these guys have Cybern, which these guys don't have, and they have Seraphim, which these players don't have. I'd probably pick Seraphim over Cybern for this game style because Seraphim shields are extremely useful, and if you have UEF, you really have no problems with build power, and you can see how quickly these things build. Now, this first experimental is just going to be used for defense, expecting experimental from character, which he didn't send because he decided that it's not, he's really not afraid of the other team, so he decided not to. This is nice to see. We have a optics facility. This basically allows you to look anywhere on the map. It costs a lot of power. See a T3 unit, just in case something bad happens. And see another experimental being built by Mecha. And some shields already. So these shields are going to be useful later when there is Artie, T3 Artie, which can shoot this far on this map. So Mecha is already anticipating that, and you can see he's actually top score here, so he's really used to this type of gameplay. The other team not building any, they're actually, this is anti-nukes, another thing that players are usually keen to make on this map are nukes, so anti-nukes are very important early. Even though no one has started a nuke yet, they all have anti-nukes. We got shields. A lot of expecting on both sides here. We have a fat boy, an experimental, and a nice piece of defense, a T3 PD with a bunch of shields, and now a GC. So they're both teams. They're doing a little bit of scouting using these optics facilities, and they also have radar coverage. They're really not looking for this early fight because it's if you lose it, you basically gift the other team with a whole bunch of mass. See, two GCs and a third from Albi, and he's throwing it in alone. Now we see actually an early nuke by Berg, which I missed. But let's see if this team has an anti-nuke. So it's going to be flying. See if it hits. So it looks like if he would have gone after one of the, either yellow or Albi here, he would have actually got it through. And here's actually a nuke by, this was the anti-nuke that got it, and a nuke by Sting being built on this side. So an early nuke exchange, so the first of the many nukes that are going to follow. And you can see both teams, for the most part, making experimentals and investing in their economy. And we see a first T3 already being built by Remy. He's also putting a lot of build power on these missile defense. Since there are those optics facilities from Aeon, both teams, if they use them, they should know what the other team has. So safe gameplay from Mecha. He already has shields and a fat boy being built, so a lot of experimental things. Now we see these experimentals actually retreating. They're actually running away from a bunch of they're retreating to basically regroup with the other GC and a fat boy. Now here's a fat boy to protect against another long range unit, the fat boy on this side. So many more experimentals on this on the bottom team, and they're really spamming quite a few at this point. This nuke is done, but Sting is actually going to use it. He actually has two nukes. Simultaneously going to shoot them both at the same time. See if they do any damage. Now you see they both got taken out, and a response from Berg. You see these whole bunch of GCs coming in against this defense, but they will be nuked. This is a good way to use a nuke for defense. So these GCs lost a whole bunch of hit points from that nuke, and now they're turning back, but they're gonna get hit in the back quite a bit. So you see one dying. So basically a failed attack, and you can see how quickly Remy's got his drones out there to collect this free mass. Still more experimentals from the bottom team. So you see with X2, it's basically who can spam more. So build power is very important. You can see a Scathis, not a very effective unit. Very expensive though. Still more nukes here. Sorry about that. See, this is what it looks like from the top side. And we actually see here Remy is shooting his T3. He's got the first one, T3 already, and you can see it flying on the other side. And here we have no shields for Sting, and he's likely to get hit. So he's also has his own arty, but it has no shields. And there will be things flying and hitting his unprotected base. You can see that's pretty devastating. A whole bunch of your base just got destroyed. That's why Mecha built those shields quite early, expecting arty. And actually his commander is in danger if it gets hit by a couple of those shells. See them fly in both directions. It looks like Mecha is building his own artillery, T3 artillery, shields and artillery. And play this at a as fast as my computer can run it. So still even more destruction. The good thing about these arties is they're not very accurate, so it's hard to hit a single unit just sitting there like that. And you can see an exchange between a fat boy and a mega, and a mega is of course gonna win. See the plans for Berg. He's got the Seraphim shield, so he's got good protection against arty. He's got his own arty, the Aeon arty, and he has a nuke. See a whole bunch of build power from character. He's using it for anti-nukes at this point, which is good to see, because they're expecting that team to launch a whole bunch. So Mecha's plan is basically shields and T3 arty. That's what he's making in this game. You can see at this point the other team has 3 arty. You can see them all shooting. And now there's only really Mecha's single arty shooting back. Quite a bit of a stalemate. But you can see here how yellow is basically, his shields are losing, he doesn't have enough power to feed his shields, so they sometimes disappear. And that's really the worst part for one of these shells to hit, because they'll really devastate these units.